I'm Matt Byram, and this is the Marketing Strategies Podcast, where I speak with interesting and well-respected marketers from high-growth companies. We'll discuss the strategies they've used to generate traffic, acquire new users, and grow their business.
I know on day 30 if you are going to renew or churn on day 365.
It's a little bit of mind control.
You need to reach the leads in a specific time frame. The faster, the better.
You know, when something works, don't do more like it, do more with it.
If you're selling to a very finite audience, an inbound model is going to be grossly inefficient.
This audience has what top questions, and then make sure that you have an answer to each of their questions.
We don't hire professional writers to write for the blog. We hire sales operations practitioners.
Whoever gets closest to the customer wins.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Marketing Strategies Podcast. Today I'm joined by Yoann Pavy, Head of Performance Marketing at Perkbox. Yoann has a really interesting career history. Before he started at Perkbox, he was Head of Paid Social for Deliveroo. And being at the forefront of performance marketing for two high-profile and fast-growing companies, I'm really looking forward to learning from Yoann today. So let's dive right in. Okay, so tell me about your background and how did you get to the position that you're in?
So I started working about 8 years ago, came straight in the UK. I'm from France, as you can hear. I started as an engineer in automotive before moving into digital. I came across actually a Facebook post from a friend from school who was working for a Facebook marketing partner called Glow at the time. And I decided to change career completely and join this startup, which I learned the base of paid social and run very interesting accounts and interesting campaigns for about a year, something before coming across Deliveroo and them building their marketing team, especially from performance marketing team. And I joined as a paid social manager there, then head of paid social, at the phase right before the hyper growth that Deliveroo experienced, city by city across 12 countries. Very interesting time, to then moving on to a much bigger role in another interesting UK startup called Perkbox, where now I am head of performance marketing and looking not only at paid social but across all digital and also a bit of growth to power up the growth of the company. So yeah, interesting last 4 years, I would say.
Yeah, it's a very interesting journey and what career progression as well. And I guess so it was your friend really that enticed you to move from France over to the UK. It's quite a big jump really, Did you have other friends and family over here or?
No, no one really. I made some friends on the way. It was kind of a bold move. I would have never expected also my trajectory to be that fast. And I think digital in London is probably the best city to be in. It's kind of the mecca for startup, marketing, digital marketing sector. So yeah, I think it was kind of a bit of luck and, taking the opportunity at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. What enticed you then to move from project management into marketing? That's again, not just a move from France to the UK, but also a career change as well. What made you do that?
I always thought that I was a little bit more creative than the job I was doing. And I was curious about, technology, but more specifically social media. And being able to use, data, but also being creative about it, especially on Facebook, was something that was really interesting to me. And talking to millions of people at the same time with different messaging and, see how that influenced their behavior, etc., was really kind of fascinating and changed so much in the past 4 years, but was already very interesting 4 years ago. So yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I obviously am biased being in marketing as well, but yeah. I can totally see the pull from being in a project management role to actually coming over into a marketing role, particularly with the changes in digital marketing and how things are growing and, the ability to track and all these different exciting things that happen in marketing these days. I can really see the pull. And so I guess Glow is really where you learn your craft, really, I guess.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So I started with a smaller role in account management. I think, there's tons of agencies in London that can give you opportunities like that to learn. I was slightly older than the majority of people, already in my mid-20s rather than early 20s. But I think if you're keen to learn and curious about it, you can grow very fast personally and learn a lot. That was kind of my mission as soon as I started. I saw that, and I continue and still continue to this day.
Awesome. And I guess if you wouldn't mind, before we move on to Perkbox, I'd like to ask a few questions around Deliveroo. So I know at Deliveroo you were head of paid social. And tell me a little bit more about the role. Is it creating ads on different social platforms to attract the audience, hit the audience with different messages, I presume?
Definitely that. So it was user acquisition based, using paid social, mainly Facebook, but also Instagram and Twitter and a bit of Snapchat as well. But really to acquire users and look at their behavior and kind of scale from that. The very interesting part was the kind of growth that started literally when I started. About in the first 3 months, I think I had to scale up user acquisition through Facebook for suddenly, I think about 10 countries and then 12 and about 100 cities in a very granular way. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, and the most interesting part of the job was to see paid social differently. I think there's a few companies like that can only scale city by city and not in a country as straight away, in like most e-companies would. So that was the challenge, and I think we've done very interesting work with Facebook directly to similarly that things happen in the travel industry as well, to like being very smart about geolocalization of people and their smartphone, and be able to target people at the right time, at the right place, and for example, showing you the best restaurant around you when you are looking at your Facebook, for example. So that was very, very interesting work. And then working on the app and stuff like that. That was really interesting too. But really the challenge of the business model itself was the most interesting part.
That's really interesting. And did you have a campaign effectively that you were just replicating across the different countries, or were there big differences between the campaigns?
So it was fairly different across countries, because we realized very, very early on that food is it is an international, worldwide topic, but it is very different from country to country, and we had to adapt a lot of what we were doing based on the country and the local, food habits of people, and adapt from that. I think the biggest win for us was made as soon as we started automated using DPA on Facebook, so dynamic product ads, in the same way ASOS would do it for clothes, we would do it for restaurant, based on where you are. That was very, very strong for us, and that was part of the interesting work we did directly with Facebook as well. That was good.
So you would show people specific ads for specific restaurants based on their location.
Yeah.
I guess in that case, would you actually pre-fill a range of ads based on specific different locations that Deliveroo operated in, and then you could actually serve those based on people that came into that location and they were looking at Facebook, for example?
Yeah, so it would be fully dynamic, based on list and different flows that would literally in real time show you what's around you at the time or where you are. So it's really going into personalization to the best level as you can. One-to-one messaging to everyone looking at the ad would not see the same thing, if that makes sense. So that was really strong.
Those dynamic ads are pretty much what you would say were the most successful for Deliveroo.
Yeah, and then we did some brand campaigns and some interesting video stuff, but never as effective in terms of app install and user acquisition, for sure.
You mentioned about video there. Is that something that you tested now that video is such a big focus on the social channels? Or?
Yeah, it's always something that we've tested. Not always the best thing we tested. And images and static images was always strong. And even here at Perkbox, we're really keen on video. But I think unless the content is really, really strong and not a repurpose of, a TV campaign or something like that, it could work very well. The problem sits more on execution. And that's one of the difficulty of working on content in general for digital and for paid social. From what I've seen, there is a shift happening or starting to happen in companies, especially companies that run marketing in-house, digital marketing in-house, in understanding that content for digital should be digital focused and really thought through to be quality content, really add value to the user and not just sell something or be something that is for something else and you just took it and cut it in 6 seconds and put it live. And that's still happening, and it's not an easy discussion because there is a lot of learning to be done internally from different teams, creative teams and, art directors and roles like that, which needs to shift a bit more to digital and have this discussion of this digital first approach.
Absolutely, and it's something that we're actually seeing in our business. We've been, I have a marketing agency called Wise Owl, and we create different types of content, a lot of video, but also other types of content. And what we've found over the last few years, or particularly, last sort of 4 or 5 years, is that different types of content put out into the market really need to be fit for purpose. So they don't just need to be sort of replicated across the channels, but they actually need to be made for those specific channels, and also need to be the best content that you could possibly create for those channels, because there's so many other people that are vying for attention there that you can't just put a cut up piece of content onto another channel. It's really got to be totally suited for that channel to have the best impact.
Exactly. And it really has to make the experience of the context better. And that's something really hard to do. And I haven't come across a lot of content like that in general, where you would see an ad, not necessarily think it's an ad, but also like it. It would surprise you or create like an emotion that would not be, oh, it's an ad, let me just scroll it through. That's really hard. And I'll probably talk about it a bit later at Perkbox. I have a good example of that.
So if we just finish this conversation around Deliveroo, if you were to give the listeners any takeaways in terms of what you learned over your time at Deliveroo in terms of paid social, is there any sort of things that you would really suggest small, medium, large businesses, the range actually try in terms of paid social marketing? What's worked for you? What have you learned that is highly effective, and what could you pass on?
Yeah, so from what I remember, the most important thing, and that's something that I'm trying to really apply here now, is in the perspective of scaling, or really scaling your business and using digital for that. Really try and think ahead of the curve. So what is it going to look like on your Facebook account, once you're going to get 2, 3, 4, 5 times more accounts and more campaigns? Like, is it scalable? Do I work with the right partner? Do I want to work with a partner? And really take some time to think about it, because that will avoid some surprises and slow down the road and being a bit slowed because of that. I would also say to think about which partner, if you want to go with an FMP. At Deliveroo, we tried a few. We worked with Nanigans and Smartly, and we tried Make Me Rich as well on paid social, and really take the time to know which partner would be the best for you, depending on your vertical and what you're selling, because again, that will save you time and implementation time and learning, etc. So that would be the best advice, I would say.
Okay, so I guess from Deliveroo you moved to Perkbox, and if you could give us a bit of an introduction into what Perkbox does and who they are.
Yeah, so Perkbox it's a B2B company as a cloud-based employee perks and engagement platform on web and app for businesses of all sizes. The vision and the mission of Perkbox is actually very, very interesting, because it's about engage employees and make people happy and happier in their workplace, but in life in general, and stay for longer. And we created that platform and reward and recognize employees and for them to become more productive in their company culture. So yeah, that's kind of the mission.
That's Perkbox in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah.
And I read, am I right in saying that Perkbox has 300,000 users?
A bit more. We're touching about 500,000 actually. So the company was founded in 2015 by Saurav and Chu, and in the last 3 years we grew from about 4 million to 15 to then 30 million turnover. So it's growing very fast. Only in the UK, across 10,000 companies across the UK, all sizes. So yeah, doing pretty good so far.
That's fantastic. And tell me a bit about how the perks work. How does the relationship work between the business, the employee, and then the vendor or the person that's actually giving the end discount or perk?
Yeah, so as soon as your company signs up, all employees would get access to the platform. And the platform has hundreds, not to say thousands, of offers across, discounts for all sorts of shopping and mobile insurance and health insurance and fitness, health stuff. There's across your all day to day, you would find perk to like help you, save money and be happier and be more healthy, which is good. And on our side, obviously, we have a very strong partnership team that would refresh perks on a weekly basis, and we have new deals all the time, and it's pretty good. Or one of our more talked about perks are like free coffees at Cafe Nero and discounted cinema tickets from like all the main cinemas in the UK, things like that. Yeah.
And I guess it's a win for everybody. You're just connecting people who want to visit these retailers and the retailers that want the audience as well. So I guess everybody wins out of your platform, really. On your profile, it says you built the performance marketing team from scratch. What did that entail exactly?
The vision for the marketing team before I joined was to build a team in-house, have a fully function performance marketing team. So I joined in July last year and basically started by recruiting the key members of the team to be able to tackle all the channels that we wanted to test and really look into what has been done up until that point, looking at the analytics, what was existent in terms of reporting and stuff, and kind of shake things up and kind of do it better. The strong point for me and what was very interesting is that up until we joined as the performance marketing team, most of the marketing budget was spent on Facebook, which was really, really interesting for me for a B2B company. And that's one of Chu's, so the co-founder, who's also the CMO, vision was that it's really a B2B2C approach that we have in marketing. We're really talking to the employees, trying to talk as much to the employees to then get referral to businesses to try out Perkbox. So we have this duality in our ads, depending on the channel, where we would talk to decision makers and CEOs and HR directors, but we would also talk to employees and generate interesting competition on social platform and really engage with them to like show what they have and show what they could have if they're not with us already. And so the vision was really to take that base and kind of develop it based on the business and where the business is growing and run it with a fully functioning team.
So there's a lot of your marketing focused towards the employees of the business who then speak with the business owner and say, can we be on Perkbox or can we get Perkbox for our business?
It's working very well. But it comes down to the base of who doesn't want free stuff.
It's true.
We always been and we still are very eye candy in our approach on our ads on Facebook. There's a lot of lollipops and ice cream and cupcakes, even though it's just the image of what we sell. It's not necessarily what you get. It's not because you're going to give candies to your employees that they'll be happier. They might be happy for 1 second, but then the routine comes back. So it's more than that, but the vision and the messages around that works very well.
So a lot of the marketing's direct to the employee. Do you find that the employees then speak with the business owners and actually, is that the driving factor? Or?
It was in a much more grander scale before we kind of reshaped the digital marketing approach up to, I would say, last summer. We used to be very prominent on Facebook, as I said, so it was always a very interesting approach, but we We moved slightly away from it by bringing a bit more knowledge in the analytics side of things and the reporting, and really looking at the pipeline we were creating. And obviously, so the business has been very strong in the SME space in the UK because of that. Because people on Facebook and the size of the audiences that you can target, etc., is really broad. We kind of reshaped our approach to more channels, to really interesting things on LinkedIn, on Twitter as well. Really accelerated Google AdWords to really look for something more and create a better pipeline in the end, with lower churn rate and just better business outcome. So it was, and now it's kind of different. Now we really have this dual approach where we would try and talk to decision maker first, but always talk still to the employees and make sure they see the message as well.
That makes sense, yeah. So I guess it's a holistic marketing approach, not just different channels now, but speaking to all the different audiences that are involved with you, with buying your product as well and using your product.
Yeah.
And so what are the channels that are still most successful for you? Is it still really social that's the key driver for user acquisition at Perkbox?
So I call it the Holy Trinity at Perkbox, but we're running mainly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Google. So LinkedIn became a very big part of our marketing strategy because of the sizes of the pipeline that we were creating. So we really changed the approach and moved away from looking at only cost per lead to a cost per pipeline, if that makes sense, or a pipeline created per pound spent, which is much better. Also generate revenue that will have less churn rates in the end. So it really changed drastically in the past 8 months. But those 3 channels are the biggest.
And when you say pipeline, is this pipeline that's of one closed business, or is this actually pipeline of leads potential business?
It's quoted, so it's potential revenue. So I guess that really depends to everyone's business and business model. But for us, a closed revenue can take time, obviously, because we're talking about decision makers, that companies that have potentially hundreds or thousands of employees, and things implemented like that takes months. If we were to optimize our campaigns or content based on close one, we would have to look back 6 months to a year, and that's really hard to do. I guess the point is really you have to look at what is the most interesting point of conversions you want to look at in your funnel to really optimize your campaigns towards for it to make sense, and that's what we did.
It's really interesting that you look at the metric of pounds spent for pipeline generated, because I guess although in one sense, like you say, it can mean that you've got an instant view on are we generating more pipeline or less pipeline, it seems like it could be a very inaccurate metric in the fact that salespeople could just quote on lots of companies or lots of work, really, and that could just inflate the metric.
That's
do you manage that?
Yeah, so that's where our qualification and we have like SDRs and SDR teams and sales teams that really qualify the leads that come through. So we make sure that stuff that are quoted, leads that are quoted are relevant. And after that, we do look into conversion rate to close revenue. So we know if months on months or weeks on weeks, if things go up and down, if we have to worry. Because you're right, we could create a bigger pipeline that actually doesn't close for some reason, and we would have to see that and understand that. So we have a close eye on this, because I understand that it could be just looking at it would be misleading. It's just that for optimization purposes, I think for us it makes more sense.
It's very interesting, really is. And what software tools are you using to actually track and manage that on a daily or weekly, monthly basis? What are the most important tools for you and your team?
Salesforce is central for the business. So everything is kind of mapped into Salesforce. We decided to add an extra layer for performance marketing. On top of that, we're using a tool called Visible. I don't know if you know about it. It's allowing us to do click tracking across multi-channel and multi-attribution. which is very interesting for us because it allows us to really look at the pipeline revenue created by channel, depending of a lead creation touch to an opportunity created and everything in between. We are lucky in a sense in the way our attribution works, because a lot of our leads actually come from clicks within 24 hours, and that's also coming back from my Deliveroo experience, understanding the post-click, post-view ratio and how a post-view could influence a lead across your channel is less of an issue for us. Whereas it was more of an issue at Deliveroo, where you would see some food on social media and it could influence your conversion later on Google, etc. And that was harder to understand and to map. So here with this solution, this Salesforce Visible combo, we managed to capture most of what we want to see. The challenge now comes from introducing new channels that are more view-based, like programmatic and offline campaigns, measuring incrementality when there is a lot of view rather than actual clicks and UTM tags and stuff is harder. So we're beginning to talk about it right now to allow us to open new channels.
And it's interesting you talk about attribution there. So, like you say, it seems like Deliveroo, you'd be able to be emotionally influenced by a picture of some food and actually perhaps click and go ahead and actually order or buy straight away maybe. But I guess with your system, it seems, as you've indicated, that it seems like there's a longer lead time, up to 12 months perhaps, where people are making a decision there and it's pipeline for you then. How are you dealing with attribution to actually really accurately track the original source, or where do you attribute the source to?
So as I said, with Visible, we would map all our touch points. It's mainly UTM based, but we would not only look at a first touch or last touch, we will look at different model in between to see differences and to see patterns. And then in terms of sales funnel up until closing a deal, we will look at all the conversion rates in between from a lead to, an opportunity created and, having a demo in between. We would look at that and the times in between as well, like how long does it take from a lead to get a demo with the sales team? How long does it take to be quoted and how long does it take to be closed? And we will look at this matrix. And we're making a lot of progress these days, this year actually, on that, because that was not something that was necessarily a priority prior to this year. So I'm really excited about it. That's going to be very important for us in terms of scaling even more the business.
It's so interesting. I mean, it's such a difficult science, really, is to actually manage the user attribution and actually understand at which point to actually create that attribution and where people come from. It's something that we struggle and consistently work with in our business as well. I guess another question that I had was, it seems that you mentioned all the different channels and areas that you focus on. It seems that a lot of what your department is set up to do is actually to experiment and to test and to try new things, different marketing tactics in different areas. Would that be right?
Yes. So one of the most amazing thing here is that we really have a lot of freedom to do a lot of testing, and testing is really, really key for us. We do have our evergreen campaigns and strategy across our main channels, but I'm always keen to look and to be kind of at the forefront of what's new. So there is a lot of testing in the pipeline for this year in terms of new channels. And, for example, we recently launched on Amazon as well. So the Amazon network, which is becoming really increasingly huge.
Is that on the paid advertising side of
on product searches and on actual Amazon, but also outside of Amazon, because they own a bit of they have some display activity outside of their main website. So that's the kind of thing that we're testing. Even though if it's B2B, we never have the assumption that it couldn't work. We always have a testing mindset to see if we could get incrementality in the leads and the pipeline and the revenue that we could get out of these new tests. Definitely important.
And which experiments in that case have been the most standout for you? Which experiments have you run over this last year that have given you the best return or have been a surprise for you in terms of how they've performed?
I'll go back to LinkedIn, which was almost non-existent before I joined with the team. And looking at the metrics in just slightly in a different way, basically going away from just looking at a cost per lead point of view and assuming that if the cost per lead increase doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, and going for quantity over quality doesn't necessarily work forever. So that was our biggest win for sure. Scaling up LinkedIn, and we have this amazing relationship with LinkedIn now as well. They really help us get the most out of our activity, and the quality that we got out of that was really, really impressive. Overall, I think we managed to increase the pipeline we were creating on a monthly basis by reducing the volume of leads that were coming through by half. So really,
wow, that's amazing.
It's really, really impressive numbers. And when we sat down with the co-founders and show them, that was kind of a revelation. We've been going out after Facebook for so long and thought it was kind of the only way, and showing them that it's okay to spend more on the more expensive channel if that backs up in metrics that are just further down the line was really important for us in the past 8 months.
And what types of advertising are working best for you on LinkedIn?
We try a bit of everything that's available to us. The text ad, which are not the most common ones. We do sponsored content, sponsored ads, and display, which comes from DSP, from programmatic, to really make sure. The key is to be where our audience is and where decision makers are. Anywhere they would be, we would try it and see if it works. And LinkedIn was definitely a win for that.
To take a slight departure, it sounds like a lot of what we've been talking about has been advertising-based, sort of paid advertising. How important is content, inbound, organic advertising, SEO? How important is that side of things for you?
Very important, very important. So at the same time as we scale performance marketing team, we also scale our demand gen, content and creative team to go alongside and go towards the same goal. So we really at the same time ramped up our content and push that content where it works, going into nurturing flows and really being smarter with our emailing strategy, nurturing leads to down the funnel and qualifying them. That was a big change for us as well in the last year. That as well as on the creative side. So we also have an in-house creative team that fully support digital and content. So that's really important for us as well.
So you've really just scaled the whole marketing team all at once, really, I guess. So what a big year for Perkbox, eh?
Big, yeah. Big.
But it seems if you're growing to, the quoted numbers that I saw of 300,000 to 500,000, and, I guess you've probably got a big goal of 1 million coming not too far down the line, I imagine. So it seems like you've got a lot of growth ahead. Do you guys plan to branch out into other countries as well?
Nothing specific at the moment, but that would be great. I mean, for me personally, I can say that it would be amazing to kind of live again while I live at Deliveroo one more time, and hopefully many more times in the future. It would be great from a digital point of view, and all the things you can do when you talk about different markets and different strategy, and it would be great, yeah.
And last question, really, before we jump into our last 5 quickfire questions, is what's the focus for you for the rest of this year in 2019? What strategies are you going to be doubling down on?
Yeah, so keep diversifying channels and keep testing new channels, I think. Also with content, trying to find the right balance in how much could we squeeze out of content to generate more business for us, rather than going for pure ads. That's going to be a focus. And I would say being more customer-centric as well on our website and the way we generate leads. I've actually really loved the episode you did with Guillaume from Drift. that kind of validated a lot of things that we were talking about internally, and that's going to be a focus for us this year. I always think in the back of my head that landing pages are dead. With things I've seen on Facebook and LinkedIn and even Twitter, when you can generate leads directly on platform, I think it would be very, very strong for businesses to start doing that on their website directly, and have a real discussion, one-to-one discussion that comes with both a chatbot or actual people to qualify more leads. That's going to be very, very interesting. And I would say one last thing would be to keep testing offline. So we never done a lot of offline at Perkbox before, but this year we tried a tube campaign, which was a good test for us to work as a team on that. And I think there's more coming up on this, more on the brand awareness side of things. But I think it's important also to outside of the performance side of things, to also kind of be there and be at the forefront of people's mind and who we are.
It's interesting that you're going to look at some offline things, but I'm particularly also interested in the chatbot side of things as well. I think there's still quite a lot of work to do in that area to really refine it and make the bots actually effective and useful. But I really think there's a big future in the automated chat following through to actually then passing leads and people onto salespeople when they're qualified or when they meet certain criteria. So I think it's really exciting. It's something that we've been experimenting with a bit ourselves as well recently.
Cool.
So I'd love to take this to our last 5 questions, which are 5 quickfire questions. So question number 1 is, what's your best piece of marketing advice?
So I would say question everything. That's kind of my motto. I think it's very easy to have too much subjectivity in marketing teams and in businesses in general, like thinking things are not going to work or we should change things for certain subjective reasons. I think everything should be tested before giving any conclusions.
That's very good. I agree. And can you recommend a book to our listeners?
Yeah, so I don't read a lot of books, but one that I read recently was by Adam Alter called Irresistible. It was really cool because it talks about the rise of addiction in tech and businesses that are keeping us hooked, like Instagram and stuff. And I recently had a first child, so me and my wife are definitely very interested in that. And should we have a tablet, and should we have should kids have phones too early, etc. The addiction bit of technology these days and digital is very interesting, but also I think a problem. So
I agree.
Interesting book.
Yeah, it's a big shift really at the moment, isn't it? Where we've got phones and tablets and, these social networks and things that enable us to connect and communicate, so easily. I mean, I can remember when we didn't even have mobile phones, or it was a luxury to have 20 texts a month.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so number 3 is, what software tool could you not live without?
So from my background, I would probably say Facebook Business Manager, just based on my background. But nowadays, I would probably say Salesforce, because everything sits there in terms of the business data, and that's where we kind of pull the data to do our analysis. If you ask me again in about 1 month, I'll probably change my mind and tell you something else, like Mixpanel or something like that. But we're really getting up to speed in analytics, so probably another analytics tool.
And what's your favorite example of a marketing campaign?
Yeah, very interesting question. So I thought about it quite a lot. I think probably anything that Kanye West pulls off. Even
though they might not mean to be marketing campaigns.
Exactly. I'm always fascinated by the way him and even Kim Kardashian run their marketing, personal marketing campaigns. It's really fascinating. And even recently, Kanye West going back on Twitter just because of his new album dropping in 2 months. It's not random. It just shows that every advertising effort should be integrated to work together, to work collectively, to increase impact. And I think that's where he's really good at.
And I suppose it shows as well that, bad advertising can be good as well, because some of the things that they do can be very controversial and things like that, but it just gets the message out there to a wider audience. That controversy just spreads like wildfire, doesn't it? So
definitely.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
And finally, which other podcasts do you listen to?
So I recently got into podcast. I'm on one right now. So two actually that I'm listening to these days. One from Dylan A, called the Social Media Growth Show, which is just started, I think. It's a very, very interesting one, more around the social media side of things. And the other one that I just got into is from Odja, actually. It's called the Yoanns Strike Back. And, interesting content there as well for everything marketing related.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I'll put links to both of those in the show notes. So anything that we've talked about there in the last 5 will all be in the show notes linked up, so people can check out the books and the podcasts and the software tools as well. So, Yoann, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. It's been really interesting, very, very interesting past that you've got. And it sounds like you've got an exciting thing going on there at Perkbox. So it's been really interesting. I hope the listeners have got a lot from this today. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Matt, for inviting me. I think it's been interesting for me as well, very interesting.
Thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with your friends. I'd also be extremely grateful if you could rate and review us on iTunes or the channel you get this podcast through. Until next time, I've been your host, Matt Byram.